When I was little, we had a well that sat about 20 feet from the side of my house. We lived out in the country where the city water didn't run, so the well was our means of running water into the house. The well was capped off by a great cement slab that prevented anything or anyone from falling in. I spent so many days playing near that well. I would stand on top of the slab and bow as if I was a magician at a show, or have an epic imaginary sword fight with goblins who tried to take my great stone monument for themselves. I would play for hours and hours near that well, despite my parents warning me about what could happen. God, I was so stupid. One day, I was fighting a new group of evil goblins who had invaded the kingdom of my front yard. When I stepped back on the cement slab to defend my monument once again, the stone cracked. At first I didn't even know what was happening, and then I was falling through the darkness of the well. I fell a long way, but I fell fast, and before a second even passed, I'd splashed down into the water that filled the well. I choked and gagged as I frantically splashed, trying to keep my head above the dark water. I was only a child, and I was so frightened. I thought for sure, in that moment, that I would die down there in the darkness. But finally, I gained some composure and put my hands on the nearest cold stone wall. I began kicking my feet, and I was able to keep my head above the water with the support that my hands on the wall had given me. As soon as I caught my breath, I began screaming for help. I knew that Dad was working in the garage and my mom was inside the house. I screamed and I screamed and screamed, but nobody came. The well must have been too deep because no one came for me. I screamed out as loud as I could and looked up to the light of the surface. The dark water was cold, and I began shivering and thinking that if I didn't get out of here soon, the cold would force my legs to stop moving, and then what? Through the opening of the well, I could make out nothing but blue sky. I was about to call out once again, but a voice behind me cut me off.
Finally, someone to play with.
I froze in place, staring straight ahead at the grey stone wall of the well, refusing to turn around and see the source of the voice. A moment passed, and the voice spoke again.
I've been watching you for so long, unable to leave this awful prison.
The voice came out as a low hissing gurgle, as if whoever was speaking had a mouth that was partially submerged in water.
But now you're here, and I won't be alone anymore.
The hissing gurgle bounced off the grey walls of the well and echoed all around. After several moments of silence passed, I somehow found the courage to turn my neck slowly to the left and look behind my shoulder, my eyes straining in the dark of the well and scanning the walls. What I saw was terrifying, but only because I saw nothing at all. I then snapped my head to the right, and once again I saw nothing at all. When a couple more moments went by, I also found the courage to speak out. "Where are you?" I called out. My voice echoed around the well then too.
I'm right here.
The voice whispered in my left ear and screamed as a hand wrapped around my leg and dragged me under the water. I coughed and gagged and called for help as my head was repeatedly pulled under the water and back to the surface again, as I fought against whatever was dragging me under. I kicked my free leg out in the dark water to hit whatever was pulling me, but I couldn't find my mark. It was as if there was no one there at all in the well with me. I gave up then. As the cold water entered my lungs, I started to close my eyes and began to lose consciousness. Then all at once the hand let go, and I heard a muffled voice calling out. I opened my eyes and could see through the dark water. I saw someone standing at the opening of the well, and hope filled me with energy, and I kicked my feet to the surface. As soon as my head broke the surface, I could hear my father calling out over my coughing and spluttering as I ejected water from my lungs. "Jimmy!" my father called down. "Get a rope, son! I'll pull you up!" My hand shot out and found the rope. As soon as my hands found it, my father's strong hands went to work, pulling me out of the well. When he pulled me out, my father scooped me up in his arms and ran in the house to run a hot shower while he hollered for my mum to get some towels. After I was warmed up and put into bed, my mum brought me warm chicken soup. and soon I was asleep. The next day my father scolded me severely for my stunt, but he didn't spank me or ground me. I guess he knew I learnt my lesson, and I did. My father went to work as quickly as he could to board up the well, and then he erected a small wire fence around it to be safe. He really didn't have to. I never said to either of my parents about the voice in the well, but I never forgot it. It's been about 6 years since then, and now I have a 4-year-old brother. Just yesterday, I was watching over him while my father was at work and my mum was at the grocery store. I was reading a book on the easy chair. My brother was on the living room floor playing with his toys and talking to himself as he did. Then, all of a sudden, I noticed that the room was silent. I saw my brother standing at the living room window with one hand on the sill, the other hand waving out the window. I looked outside expecting to see that my mother had come home and my brother had noticed her out in the yard, but all that lay beyond that window was a small fence around a boarded up well.